Hello, everybody. It's me, Alex Miller. I am here to explain to you guys all about my presentation. Again, I know for some of you who have already had class with me, you already know I work for Providence, and I have done emergency room um, PowerPoints before, but this one has to do with patient satisfaction. The reason behind my choosing this topic is because I am proud to say that we actually got one of the highest ratings at St. Vincent's for our patient satisfaction ratings. And it does make me proud to work for such a great company that gives great care to patients, and that patients are proud to say that they're coming to our hospital to receive care. So, Providence Emergency Room, I don't know if any of you have been to St. Vincent's before, but it is a very giant hospital, but constantly in motion with different diverse types of patients. And patients are constantly in and out of that waiting in that emergency room. There is a nonstop go from, I work at 6 in the morning, and from about 8 in the morning to probably 4 the next day, 4 a.m., there is a constant in and out of care with patients. And like I said, there's a diverse amount of patients. We have mental health, we have geriatrics, we have bariatrics, we have pediatrics, you name it, we deal with it at the emergency room. And so it's go, 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 and it is a very hectic work environment, and it does take a certain skill set to be able to handle that work environment. And what I mean by that is being able to handle your customer service in a very kind and professional manner and being pleasant towards the patient, but also getting your work done. Each patient does have different expectations, and they do have different experience based expectations as well. And so, some patients may require more care than others, and, being able to adjust to each patient is what's going to provide that patient satisfaction. And it is hard for patients because sometimes they don't understand why wait times are so long. We do get some complaints that wait times are too long and the patient was so miserable, they had to wait. And the nice thing is about our technology is we can go back and see how long that patient actually waited. But being able to handle those complaints is what Providence does really well. We have a quality management team that does take complaints and deal with them in a very professional manner. Our charge nurses and our nurse manager for the emergency room, they handle complaints very well. And so that's what makes Providence St. Vincent such a great place for patients to go. So as you can see here, I pulled up some statistics on the Providence website. Our overall rating back in 2019 was up versus the overall benchmark. So you're going to see the emergency room is in the green tab up there on the top. It's the second from the top. And so the national benchmark is going to be obviously Providence wide. And so to see that, and we are one of the biggest hospitals in Oregon. And so to see that even one of the busiest emergency rooms still can maintain a great success rate with patient satisfaction. So management approach, there is leadership style, and I got that quote from our book. But the emergency room maintains leadership in each department. So the physicians have their own leader, nursing staff has their own leader, and then our admitting department has leads that work shift to shift. We also have our supervisor. But having that lead type approach or lead being in charge of the shift, it helps manage the staff and direct the staff in ways that you can adjust towards patient care and patient satisfaction. And so giving your staff members the direction necessary without creating chaos or without having the patients notice that we're understaffed or it's crazy out in the emergency room, because obviously that's not good customer service. You don't want patients to feel that intense feeling or feel that negative side of the business. You want them to feel like everything's good and that they're in good hands and they're in good care. And so having that leadership style, it does motivate others to successfully work throughout the day, even under stressful environments like we have at St. Vincent's, because we are seeing so many different types of patients and constant work in motion. And so the leadership helps keep everything under wraps and keep everything in a steady motion. So in the past, what Providence was dealing with were historical elements that could have influenced negative feedback from patients or negative patient satisfaction. Staffing is always one of those issues that is constantly an up and down wave of trying to find the right amount of staff, maintaining the right amount of staff, maintaining staff satisfaction as well. And so being able to assess that and deal with that within the budget is something that, has been talked about for so long. And so being able to maintain the proper amount of staff to care for these patients and the high acuity of these patients is something that was not assessed. We've also had a very high influx of patient population, or the population altogether in Oregon. And so that's going to change the type of patients that we see. And so having to adjust your staffing according to the population and the patient types is what's going to keep the flow and patient satisfaction going. Wait times are always a high thing in emergency rooms because you have to take the most critical patient over someone who's not as critical. And so adjusting the emergency room to be able to take care of those not so urgent patients. And so as you can see on the next bullet point there's quick care, which is something that our emergency room does have. And I know it says MVA there, which is motor vehicle accident. Some motor vehicle accidents don't need the emergent care that you may think. Sometimes people will just come in for like foot pain or back pain from a motor vehicle accident, and it's from being rear-ended and maybe not have been such a bad accident, but those are the patients that are going to go in that quick care unit. Sometimes patients don't always feel heard or recognized. They felt like they sat in the room for so long without seeing somebody, and that's something that can create that negative patient experience and cause our satisfaction rate to go down. So making sure that the nurses or the CNAs or the EMTs or doctors are checking in with their patients at a consistent rate. Even the admitting staff can go in there and check on these patients and make sure that they have everything within their needs is a great way to increase your patient satisfaction. And then billing and financial assistance. So one problem we do have here in Oregon is patients without insurance. And so being able to work with those patients with our billing department and giving them that financial assistance is what's going to create, again, that patient satisfaction, that positive satisfaction rating. And so that is a big concern for patients that come into the emergency room. They stress more about how they're going to pay the bill. And so easing their way, because Providence is very big on easing a patient's way, easing their way in the reassurance that we will help you. There is always a way to help no matter what your situation is. That is a great way to ensure patient satisfaction. So it does become this ethical issue, or ethical and liability issue. Again, we're going to go back to deciding which patient comes first. So say you come in for a cut with a knife and you feel that your care is more urgent than the person sitting there with a broken leg because you got there first. Well, how can we decide to tell a patient, no, sorry, their care is more important? You can't. And so that is one challenging issue that it is hard to decide who's going to get treated first, how they're going to get treated, can they get treated in the waiting area instead, and how can these things get adjusted. And so that's kind of where that quick care area becomes helpful and useful, is because patients who may not need that critical care right away, who are waiting there for 3 hours, they can be seen a little bit sooner, and that is beneficial. So some managerial strategies that are great, creating decisions between managers and employees. So going through our textbook, it's really hard to find a way to create a good work environment, because it can't only be the physicians that decide, and it can't always be the nurses that decide. You have to take from each department. And so getting that feedback, because each staff member is going to view things differently. They're going to see patients, like nurses will hang out with patients or care for patients longer than a physician will, obviously. And the admitting staff will hear things that maybe the patients won't tell the nurses or the doctors. And so getting that feedback from the employees and giving that to the managers can help create that patient satisfaction. There's also internal rewards. So creating something for your employees to push to want to work harder to give patients the best care that's possible, and making sure patients feel like they're getting the best care possible, because sometimes we may feel like, as employees, we may feel that we're giving the best care, but maybe to the patient it was the worst care that they were ever given. And so connecting with that patient and ensuring that your employee is working to the best of their abilities to ensure that those patients are getting what they need is very important. And then how can we inspire those employees to give patients the best care? Because employee burnout in an emergency room is very high, and it can be very stressful, and nurses are constantly on their feet. The admitting staff is constantly helping out where they can. And so, just making sure, and this ties in with patient focus, just making sure that we can, keep that positive, I want you to be happy about coming to work feeling, is what's going to, again, help the patient realize that they are important and they're the number one reason why we do come to work every day. It's not for the paycheck, but it is to take care of these people. And lastly, implementations. So creating an environment where employees feel encouraged enough to work hard towards patient satisfaction. So again, this goes back to the last slide, just making sure that your employees are taken care of so that the patients can be taken care of, because obviously the patients are number one in any healthcare organization. And so you, as managers or healthcare leaders, ensuring that the employees are being taken care of just as much as the patients is what's going to make that patient feel like they're being taken care of, and make sure everything is where it needs to be without seeing chaos again. So there are so many ways to create patient satisfaction, but instilling patient satisfaction is into employees' brains and getting that into their thought process and not making it a negative thought process is what's going to make that such a high rating in the end.